Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Evidence, and in today's video I am going to show you how to quickly explore your data. So whenever you import a CSV file inside your notebook, there's a couple of steps that you can take to explore your data, and I'm just gonna go over those steps here. So let's go ahead and import our data, and let's go ahead and import pandas as PD. And here, these are the things I'm gonna show. I'm gonna show you how to look at the first 5 items on the data frame, look at the end of the data frame, how to explore documentation of the module you're going to be using, look at the data types, look at the shape of the data too. So let me go ahead and include here data shape, and how to do a few other things. So I just imported pandas as PD. Let's go ahead and load our data. So I'm using something called pandas.read CSV, and in this case I want to read URL. So basically, if you're using pandas CSV, if you're in Google Colab, it will give you a preview of the documentation, but if you're working offline, you may not get a preview of the documentation. So that's one of the advantages of working with Google Colab. So let's go ahead and read our data frame. And as you can see right here, one of the ways to explore a data frame is looking at the head of the data frame. And to look at the head of the data frame, you do something like df.head. So basically, df.head shows you the first 5 rows of the data frame, and in computer science everything is 0 indexed, so almost everything is 0 indexed. I can think of a few things that's not 0 indexed, but most things are 0 indexed, and as you can see, this begins with 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4. So df.head is a way for you to see the first 5 rows from your data frame. And here you can specify, so if you want to see the first 10 rows of your data frame, you can put in 10 here, and you'll be able to get the first 10 rows. You can put in something like 20 here, and you'll be able to get the first 20 rows of your data. So df.head is one way to explore your data frame. Let's go ahead and change this back to the default 5, or let's just do 2 and only get 2 rows. So the other thing I want to show you is how to look at the tail of your data frame. And to do that, you just do df.tail. And if you are in Google Colab here, once you do df dot, you get options of different things that you could do. As you can see, just a lot of things that you can do to your data frame. But in this case, I just do tail. And basically, tail shows you the last 5 rows in your data frame. And that's another way to explore your data frame if you wanted to see like what the end of your rows look like. And of course, just like head, you can specify. So in this case, I'm just gonna put something like 15. As you can see, we have 15 rows here. So this is the last 15 rows of this data frame. So df.tail is another way to explore your data. Let's see here. We could also look at the documentation. So as you can see, in this case, I use pd.read.csv, pandas.read.csv. If I wanted to read the documentation for this, I can do something like question mark pd.read.csv. And as you can see right here, if I do this in Google Colab and click Shift Enter, I get this column on the right hand side, and it says help, and it tells you this is the signature pd.read.csv, and it kind of gives you the documentation for this. So docstring, and this is like a description of what this module does, and it reads a comma separated values, which is CSV file, into a data frame, and it gives you the different parameters that you could use, and it just gives you the full documentation about the module you are using. So if you are working in Google Colab, or even if you're working in Jupyter Lab, you can use this to read the documentation. Another way to read the documentation is to do parentheses. Let's go ahead and close this. You could do parentheses, and in the beginning you just do something like help. So if you do help parentheses pd.read.csv, you get the exact same thing. You get the documentation for it. So if you go all the way here to the end, to the beginning, you can see the documentation for Pandas. You can see the parameters for it. You can see the docstring for it, the docstring, the parameters, and you can read more about the module that you're using. So those are two ways to get the documentation inside your notebook without having to go to Google to find your documentation. Let's see, what else do we have on our list here? So you can use describe to find out more about your data. All right. So you could do something like the data frame dot describe. And basically, describes gives you a summary of your data frame, and it does this for each column. So, and it does this for the number columns. Okay, if we go back to our data frame here, you can see that some things are numbers, something like monthly premium is numbers, but everything else is text, which is what we call categorical value. This is a categorical value. All right. So df.describe by default gives you a summary of your integer columns, integer features. So it gives you the count, and of course the count is the same all across, because this is the number of rows, and it gives you the mean for each value, and it gives you the standard deviation, it gives you the minimum value, it gives you the 25 percentile, 50 percentile, 25 percentiles, and then it gives you the maximum value. So df.describe is a way to get a summary for your numerical columns. What if you want the summary for your categorical columns? Well, you can also do that with df.describe. So if we go here and do df.describe, but instead of using the default here we'll do something like exclude equal to number. And let's go ahead and run this. And now we have the description for our categorical values. So if you go to customer, you can see that customer, we can say the count, which should be the same count as this, because count is just the number of rows. state, response, and every column that is not a number, we have a summary for it now. And it tells you how many unique values here. And as of customer, we have 9,000 unique values, which makes sense. We have over 9,000 unique customers. Then state, and then the number of values here. And then it tells you like the top customer. In this case, this is not really the top customer because there's 9,000 unique ones, so it just shows this one at the top. But in this case, California appears more often than other states, and no is the top value here, basic, bachelor, and so forth and so on. And then it tells you the frequency, like how often the highest value occurred. So in state column, California occurred 3,000 times, no occurred about 8,000 times, and the total is 9,000, so yes appeared about 1,200 times. And then kind of tells you how many times the top category appeared in that column. You could also do df.describe for individual columns. All right, so let's choose something like education, and let's do df education dot describe. So in this situation, we are just getting the description for a single column. So if you do not want to get the description for the whole data frame, you could as well get the description for a single column. Now, what about the description documentation? So you can get the documentation for describe by doing what I showed you earlier, which is df.describe, which is the data. Df stands just for the data frame you're working with, .describe. And here you can say percentiles equal to none, include none, exclude none. Datetime is numeric equal to 4. So these are like the default parameters. And if you look at the doc strings, it tells you that it generates descriptive statistics. And these general descriptive statistics include the central tendency, dispersion, and shape of the dataset distribution. And it analyzes both numeric and object series. Object series is categorical values. So the default percentile provided here is 25%, 50%, 75%. But if you want to get the 20 percentile, or if you want to get the 10 percentile, you include the percentile parameter and you just specify 0.2 or 0.1. And I'm gonna show you that here. Let's go ahead and do df.describe again, and in this case I'm gonna specify the percentile, and I want it in a list, and the percentiles I want 0.1 for the 10 percentile, let's say 0.2 for the 20 percentile, 0.8, stuff like that. And let's go ahead and run this. And now we have the 10 percentile, of this data frame. We have I specified the 20 percentile, and we looked at also the 80 percentile, which is what I describe here. So you could specify what percentiles you want to look at when you do df.describe. And then you have something like include, where you can specify the data types to include, and you also have exclude, which I already showed you how to use. So that's the basics of how to get a description of your data frame. Now let's go ahead and look at D types. Another way to explore your data frame is to do df.dtypes. And df.dtype basically tells you the type of data in your data frame. So basically it's here telling you that customer is an object, which is a string, which is the equivalent of a string. And then state, and then it tells you customer lifetime value is a float, which is a decimal point. And then it tells you that income is an integer. And this effective to date is supposed to be a date time, but it's classified as an object. In a different video, I show you how to convert a date from a string to a date time, so it's recognized as a date time in the data frame. So data frame.dtype tells you the type of data you have in each column. Another thing I want to show you is the shape. So if you wanted to know the shape of your data, it's simple as df.shape. And if you do df.shape, it tells you how many rows and how many columns you have. So this data frame has over 9,000 rows and it has about 24 columns. Then something else I wanted to show you is finding out how many missing values you have. So if you do something like df.is null, you do that is NA or is null dot sum, I need a parenthesis here. So it tells you how many missing values is in each column, and in this situation we don't have any missing values. You could as well use NA, and it gives you kind of like the same result, and in this situation we don't have any missing values. But if you wanted to find out how many missing values you have in your data frame, this is the code to do it. The other thing I wanted to show you is just count and value count. So you could do something like df.count. df.count basically tells you how many rows is in each column, and it's something that you get here in count from descriptive. So nothing fancy. And of course you can also do df.mean, and it tells you the mean of your numerical values. You can do df.min, telling you the minimum in each value, telling you the minimum value in each data frame. So you could use something like df.min to get a minimum value. You could do df.max to get the maximum value in each data frame. And also you could do something like df.standard deviation to get the standard deviation for your numerical values. So basically everything, all the information that you get from the description here, you could also get it individually if you wanted to. And of course, like I showed you earlier, you can also do this for individual columns. So if I go ahead and copy this and say customer lifetime value, as you can see, I get the exact same information as this. So if you wanted to, you could save this to a variable if this is information you wanted to get. Another thing I wanted to show you is how to use value count. Value count is very, very nice. So you could do something like df.value count, and basically for each column, so basically this is the customer, this is the column customer, this is the column state, and this is the column customer lifetime value, and this goes all the way to the end. So you could do value count on the whole data frame, but it's not as useful as doing value count on a single series. So if I go ahead and copy this, and actually let's go ahead and do this here in a new column, in a new code cell, and let's do education dot value count. Now this is where you really see the importance of value count. It tells you that in the education column you have about 2,000 that has bachelor, 2,000 that is college, 2,000 for high school, master is about 700, and doctor is about 300. So basically value count comes in very useful when you want to find out how many items of each category is in your column. And of course, you could also do it for numerical value. So let's see, income is a numerical value. We may want to do that. Let me see. So if you can also do this for numerical values, and it gives you the value count for everything. But the number of unique values in income is a lot. That's why you have this dot dot dot. This is basically a breaking point. So let's just do it for education, just because it's easier to see what's happening. And another thing I like to do with value count is get the percentiles. So if I go copy this and do this here, all right. And actually, before I do this, let me show you the documentation for value count. So if I do this question mark thing again and do df.value count, as you can see, this is a documentation for value count. And here you can look at the normalization. This is what I was about to show you, to get the percentage for each thing. And then you can do ascending, false, or true. And the default is false. So normalize and return proportions rather than frequencies. So this is the frequency. This is how often this occurs. But when I do normalize, it's gonna show me the proportion of bachelor to everything else. So which is like the percentage of it. And ascending is like, obviously, if you want it highest to lowest or lowest to highest. So let's go ahead and do normalize equal to true. And let's go and run this. Now, as you can see, bachelor here represents 30% of the categories in education column, and then college is 29%. And of course, this and this could be combined into one. In a different video, I show you how to combine something like bachelor and college into one. And high school represent about 28%, masters about 8%, and doctorate about 3%. So value count really comes in very nice and handy when you want to get a percentage of each category in a data frame. All right. And also you could do ascending equal to true. Ascending equal to false is the default. So ascending means to go from lowest to highest, right? So the lowest value here is doctorate, then masters, then high school, then college, then bachelor. And of course, you could save this into a variable, and then you can access this information later if you wanted to. So that's how to use value count. Comes in very nice and handy for exploring your data. And then my favorite way of data exploration, and the way that I use now, is something called Pandas profile report. Okay, so right now, whenever I'm working on a project, I usually don't go through the process of exploring my data line by line like this, or code by code, unless I have a reason for doing it, unless I have a reason for wanting to look at a particular feature, or for wanting to look at the whole data frame like this. I usually start by using something called Pandas profile report. And Pandas profile report is like the best thing since microwave. Like, I'm telling you, it's amazing. So with that being said, let me quickly show you how to use Pandas profile report before I close out this video. So to actually do this, we have to import Pandas profiling. So I think I have to install Pandas profiling first in Google Colab. And even if you're working offline outside of Google Colab, you still need to install Pandas profiling. But for Google Colab, I'm not quite sure if I need to install it first. But let's find out. From Pandas profiling, import profile report. Okay, so in Google Colab, I don't have to install Pandas profiling first. But if you're working outside of Google Colab, you may have to install Pandas profiling first. And if you need to install Pandas profiling, you can use this right here. This is the documentation for it to install Pandas profiling, and this is the GitHub repo. So I'll just put this here, so when you go back to this notebook later, you'll be able to get access to this. So all right, so now that we have Pandas profiling, I'm going to create a variable for the Pandas profile report. So just so that you know, Pandas profile report takes time to run. So when you run this code, if it doesn't execute immediately, just be patient and don't freak out. It takes time for this to run. So profile is equal to profile report, and here you provide the data frame, and of course you can provide other parameters, but in this case we are just going to use the default parameter. And let's go ahead and run this. This takes time to run. So when I run this offline, it worked using this method, but I just found a documentation that shows a different way to do it, which is df.profile report. But when I did it in Jupyter Lab using this method, it worked. So let's try the new method per se. So let's do df dot so sometimes I run into problems with Pandas profiling, and this is actually common. Every time I do Pandas profile reports, I have to use a different method, which is strange. So let's go ahead and see if we can install Pandas profiling. So basically, the first time I ran into some problems, but then Stack Overflow came to the rescue. Actually, I'm not the only one that's having problem with using Pandas profile report, but this person here says that they use 2.7.1 version, and I tried that. So basically, I did install Pandas profile reports 2.7.1, and after you install it, you need to restart your timeline. And after you restart your timeline, you run it again, because the first time you do this is going to uninstall the old version of Pandas profiling and then install this one. So after doing this, I went ahead and imported Pandas profiling and Pandas profile report, and then I ran this line of code, and then I'm running my profile report now. So after your profile report has been run, this is what it looks like, and it's really, really cool. So here you can kind of see the statistics for every column. So here you can see the overview for this column. You can see reproduction. You can see like the different warnings that you have. So you can see that customer is a high cardinality feature, so it's effective to date, and policy and policy type have high correlation, and it tells you that customer is uniform and customer has unique value, so everything in customer is unique. And then it tells you that income has 25% zeros, month since last inception has 3.5% zeros, and number of open complaints is 79% zeros. So basically, it gives you warning about your overall data frame, and then it tells you how it's reproduced, and then it gives you the general statistics about your data frame. And then it goes on to look at the individual variables. So here it tells you customer, it gives you the statistics for it. You can click on toggle details and see more details about this particular feature. And then we go on to state, and then for every single column, it will give you the statistics about it. So for, let's say, customer lifetime value, it tells you distinct count, the mean, the minimum, the maximum, basically everything we've explored before, and it gives you the statistics for it, and even gives you the skewness for it, the sum, the maximum, the range, and then gives a histogram to describe this data, common values, extreme values, maximum 5 extreme values. So this is absolutely why I love Pandas profile reports, because with Pandas profile reports, all the exploratory data analysis can be done with a single line of code. And I've done a separate video kind of going through Pandas profile reports. You can go ahead and look at that video, and even wrote a blog post about it. But I consider this like a magical single line of code. With a single line of code, you can get the statistics about your data frame. You can do exploratory data analysis without having to write individual lines of code. And if you go all the way to the end, it gives you different graphs. So you can look at customer lifetime value, you can look at income, monthly premium, auto, different things. And then you can look at different correlations. And blue means highly correlated, and red means not correlated at all. So claim amount and total claim amount. This total claim amount and total claim amount are highly correlated, of course, because they are the exact same thing. But and white just means no correlation at all, or neutral. So basically, there's negative correlation between total claim amount and income, about negative 0.5 here. And then that's kind of how to interpret this graph. Then you have spearmans, candles, and fig. And then you can look at the statistics for each correlation if you wanted to. And it tells you about missing values, and then matrix and count. And then gives you a sample of the data, the first 5, the first 10 in this situation, and the last 10, just like I showed you earlier. So I love Pandas profile report. So basically everything I've been showing you so far to do your exploratory data analysis can be done with a single line of code using Pandas profile report. And just remember, Pandas profile report is a little bit finicky. This is the line of code how to do it, but sometimes you may have to do this and install a specific version of Pandas profile reports in order for it to work. As you can see earlier, I had some errors when I used the default version that came with Google Colab. That's it for this video. That is how to do exploratory data analysis with a few lines of code. And of course, this is not all inclusive. This is not everything you could do, but this is kind of like the basics to get you started with exploratory data analysis. You can always visit me online at evidencen.com. This is my primary website, and you can read my blog post. And you can go to machinelearningeducation.com to get access to this notebook. So at machinelearningeducation.com, that's where I have all my resources in one place. And if you click here, free data science resources, you'll be able to get access to all the resources. So you'll be able to get access to this notebook and to this video and to my blog post. So I create a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of blog, and I just found it easier to put everything under one roof, to put all my resources in one place. That is why I created this platform where I'm gonna put this notebook, and I'm gonna put many different resources, and that place is machinelearningeducation.com/free. Or you can just go to machinelearningeducation.com, and of course this link is going to be in the description below. That's it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and share it with other people. If you made it this far in the video and you didn't like it, please give it a double thumbs down and still subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye.